guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Coach BJ Olson, and this is a functional range conditioning session. This session today is going to be geared for cyclists specifically. FRC, or functional range conditioning, has two parts to it. One part is improving capsule range of motion, so joint range of motion and joint excursion. We're specifically going to focus on hips and shoulders. As cyclists, we do a lot of sagittal movement, which is in this plane right here. We pedal over and over and over and over. We sit this way, we walk this way, we pedal this way. So sometimes we're missing range of motion in the internal rotation area, as well as some lateral stuff. So we're going to improve some range of motion in the hip capsule. And then in the shoulder joint area, there's a lot of muscles that articulate over the joint. You have the bicep tendon and the pec tendon. You have all these muscles, and they will get tight in the front. When we're in this bike position, you'll get a loosening in the back of the muscles, the rhomboid area, lengthening of the rhomboids and the traps, and that'll create an upper cross syndrome, which can cause some issues with the shoulder joints. So we want to reset the hip capsule or the shoulder capsule, as well as the hip capsules. So we're going to start off with some controlled articulated rotations. We're just going to call these CARs for short. Let's take these kneeling. We're going to kneel down partly because it'll help us stabilize this hip from moving. When you're standing up, there's a lot more hip displacement that can happen, so we're going to keep the hips as stable as possible. Let's start off with the neck. So for the neck CARs, the goal is to really stabilize the lower body as if we're buried up to our shoulders in sand. We're going to pull the chin down to the chest, and we're going to drag the chin. We're going to scrape the chin all the way to the shoulder. We're not just in a typical hip neck circle. We just kind of circle the neck. But what we really want to do is we want to articulate each vertebra as much as we can, create some individual articulation, and that's the idea of the CARs, is we're improving your neuromuscular control at the end range of motion, so when the tissue is the most stretched and it's the most lengthened. So chin all the way down, you're going to drag your chin all the way until you run out of room. The tightness here is stopping you from getting your chin all the way up onto the shoulder. Once you hit that point, we're going to tilt the ear backwards so that you're looking up at the ceiling. Once you get backwards, you're going to roll your head slowly to the other side. So now your other ear is backwards, and you feel tension here on this side of the neck. We're going to make contact chin to shoulder as soon as we can, and we're going to slowly and with pressure scrape the neck along the bottom. And we're going to do that 3 times in each direction. All right, you guys finish that up. I'm going to talk a little bit about CARs while you guys do that. Why do we do CARs? It's important because it improves neuromuscular control over the end range of motion of a joint. It's also important because, as a warm-up, it's one of the ideal warm-ups, because the tissue that you're mobilizing is going to be the first tissue that gets stressed in a workout. So it's going to be the first line of defense. It's going to take the brunt initially. So we'll want to mobilize some hip tissue doing a hip CAR, which we'll get to, because that's going to be the tissue that gets the first stress when you go into a squat or when you go into a sprint. So CARs are really one of the ideal modalities for warming up. We should be finishing up 3 times to the right, 3 times to the left. If you're not, you can just pause, and when you're done, you can catch back up with us. All right, our second CARs is going to be for the T-spine. The reason I'm picking these is because these body parts are usually unbalanced, have an imbalance because of cycling. So when we cycle, a lot of times we're in this position where we're nice and low, the arms are bent, but in order to see over the helmet and then through the glasses, we have to really extend that neck. So we want to make sure we're mobilizing the C-spine, the cervical spine, the upper neck. Our T-spine, our thoracic spine, also usually gets a round in it. It's almost, I don't want to say it's impossible, it's not very likely that you're going to be riding with a super neutral spine. Chances are it's going to be a little bit flexed. The rest of our life we spend with a flexed spine, sitting in the car, texting. We get this flexion in the T-spine, so we want to make sure we mobilize that T-spine. Hands on the shoulders. I'm going to quickly show you guys through this and then we'll talk about it. We're going to flex the T-spine, pull the elbows into the belly button. This should not be a butt sticking out. It should be a slight hunch. You should feel the tension in between your shoulder blades. So we're going to flex it. Then we're going to rotate. So we flex, we rotate, we extend, we rotate, we flex, we come across. So what we don't want to see is we're not just doing hip or spine circles. We're flexing, then we rotate the spine. So I'm going to leave my hips facing forwards, but I'm going to try and look out the door. Then from this position, just from the ribs up, not from the hips, not from the neck, I'm going to flex my spine up as if I want to look at the ceiling, but without moving my head. So I'm not looking this way. I'm tilting those ribs back, extending the spine to see. I rotate as far as I can the other direction, and then I flex forward. So that rib cage is tilting forward, to the right, up, back, forward, and it's all happening in that thoracic spine, which is around that rib cage area. So let's do that 3 times to the right, 3 times to the left. I'll do this one with you guys. Flex it, rotate, extend, rotate, extend. And we're going to the end range of motion here. Really pushing to get as far as you can in each direction without using any displacement from the hips. When you get to your 3rd time through, we just turn around and do it the other way. Nice and slow. Each time through, you can get a little bit further possibly. I lost count, but I'm pretty sure this will be my last one. There we go. All right, so that's your T-spine cars. We're gonna move on to hips next. We're gonna stand up for these. There is a kneeling variation. The kneeling variation tends to be a little more intense, but also harder to get correct. The standing one tends to be a little bit more, there's a little more leeway. So we're gonna go through that one first. So for this, you probably want something to hold on to. I'm gonna pull over a PVC pipe. You can hold on to a counter, a wall, you can hold on to anything. Something that's not loose like this would be better, but just for the purpose of today, I'll hold on to this. So on this hip car, we're going to be working through internal rotation, which is usually the type of rotation that we have the least of. Internal rotation is one of the biggest causes of back pain, back disorder in squatting athletes and in sprinting athletes. Because you put a lot of force through your hip girdle. You have ground reactive forces, you have very strong muscular legs, and all that force travels through the hips. If you don't have sufficient internal rotation at the hips, it can cause over-rotation somewhere else in the body, like in the spinal vertebra. Okay, so we're holding on. We want to flex that hip up as far as we can, so we're bringing it up. If you can go past 90, great, but make sure you're not sticking your hips out or leaning forward. So we just go up as far as we can. Then we bring it as far to the side as we can without turning. Just bring it as far to the side as you can. We're looking for that nice kind of 90-degree angle if you can. Then we're going to try and leave this knee where it is in space as we bring the heel up. You'll feel that activates some of the tissue back here in the lateral hip. What we don't want to do is we don't want to bring our knee down in order to rotate. We want to bring our heel up. Sometimes I'll lightly put my hand on the inside just to remind myself to keep it there. So we internally rotate, and then you're going to bring that rotated leg around to the back and bring it down. I'm a little too close to that bench. Give yourself some room. 3 times each side. So we flex, we externally rotate the whole leg, and we internally rotate the femur, bring it around to the back. Let's do it again. Up, out, rotate to the back. I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, but we want to make sure that you don't lean away when you do this and you're not making this C shape. You can see that I have a little bit of curvature because it's not perfect, but the goal is to be as upright as possible, straight line from the center of your chest all the way through your standing leg. 3 times each side. It's natural to feel clicking, popping. 3 times each side. All right. 3 times is a small number. Typically, I would do 5 to 8. I would prescribe 5 to 8, or 3 times through, and you would do everything in a circuit, and maybe go through the circuit twice, 2 to 3 times each. All right, so we're gonna finish with the toes. That was your hip cars. Your toes, these are not controlled rotations. This is toe mobility. Foot health is super important. It's the foundation that you stand on. Poor foot health or poor foot mechanics will trickle up the body. So having, a weak FHL can cause ankle pain, or it can cause a fallen arch, and then a fallen arch will cause over rotation at the tibia, and you'll have problems that trickle all the way up and then will hurt you in your squat. So we want to make sure we have a good foundation on our feet. Specifically as cyclists, we wear very hard cast shoes, and those shoes don't allow for a lot of any movement of the foot. The goal is to set that foot solid, and what that does is it can create a reliance on the structure of the shoe, and what we really want is to be able to have our own support. Imagine walking around with a boot on your leg, or like a leg cast, and then you're relying on that cast to support your leg for so long you take it off, and that leg is stiff, it doesn't have strength, it doesn't work without that external structure. So that's what happens with shoes a lot of times, so we want to make sure that we are strengthening these feet when we're out of the cycling shoes. So we're going to do some end range of motion stuff with our toes. We're going to break it into 2 parts. You have the big toe, and then you have the rest. So we're going to separate it that way. So pushing your small toes into the ground, grabbing the floor, we're going to lift up the big toe, and we're going to hold it for a second. You're going to lift it up as high as you can. 1, 2, we're going to do 10 of those. 3, 4, 5. Really driving into the floor with the little toes as you really pick up the big toe as high as you can. 9, 10. All right. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to drive the big toe into the ground, which might cause a little bit of inversion at the ankle, and that's fine. Really push into that big toe. We're going to lift up the little toes as high as you can. 1, 2. If nothing's happening, if you're pulling hard and the toes aren't moving, that's okay. That muscle activation, that impulse to pull them up is enough. This should be 7 or 8, 9, 10. Pull them up high. Let's just do one more for good luck. Pull it, pull it, pull it. Good. The better you get at this, the higher those toes will come. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to bring them to the end range of motion, so pull them all the way up. Keeping them pulled up, you might want to flex your quads a little bit. It'll help you keep everything dorsiflexed and pulled up. We're going to just drop the toe. Push the toe into the ground, pull it up. Push the toe into the ground, pull it up. So you're not just dropping it. We want to press the ground like we're trying to leave a little toe print in the ground. Keep those little toes pulled up to the ceiling. 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, other side, we're going to push the little toes down, or other half. Here we go. Big toes stay up, little toes press into the ground for 1, 2, 3, 4. Really push the ground. 5, really keep the big toes up. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, relax. That's our controlled articulated rotation section for today. Great for warm-ups. You don't have to do all of those in the warm-up. What we typically do is we pick the parts that you struggle with and we put that into the warm-up. So you want to have at least one thing that you're about to do that you want to prime. I'm about to do squats. I'm definitely gonna do hip cars, whether or not I have bad hips, just to warm up that tissue, get some neuromuscular control in the area. And then you always wanna do something that you struggle with. I struggle with shoulder mobility. I will always have a shoulder car in there. I didn't do shoulder cars today. We'll get there in another video. But because I always struggle with some shoulder mobility, I will always do a shoulder car whether or not I'm doing shoulder work. All right, so we're gonna get to the next section. I think we're gonna bring the camera down. So the next section is called PAILs and rails. This is, PAIL stands for progressive angular isometric loading. So really that's the key here, is angular isometric loading. And then rails is just regressive angular isometric loading. Progressive, regressive. Most important is angular isometric loading. So we're taking the joint in a specific angle and we are loading it isometrically, or angularly and isometrically. And the goal for that is we want to activate, or we want to signal to these mechanoreceptors in our body that range of motion is safe and it's available, and that will help trigger those mechanoreceptors to give us more range of motion in the hip capsule. Soft tissue, connective tissue, is mutable, it's changeable. We know this. If you got an ACL replacement, a lot of times it's a ligament, a lot of times they'll replace it with a tendon. So if you put a tendon in there, it is a tendon. We can all agree it's a tendon. But if you went and checked on it in 2 years, in 3 years, the stress is placed upon that piece of connective tissue will start to make it'll look very much like a ligament. Similarly, if bone spurs, if you have repeated stress on the same area over and over and over again, that bone, that tissue will start to change, and it will grow in response to that change, a little spur or a little ossification. So the body changes with the given stresses. We're trying to give it the stress that would let it change to a greater range of motion in the hip capsules and the shoulder capsules. So just because you have a loss of range of motion doesn't mean you can't improve it non-surgically. Surgically we go and we remove the structure. FRC, we're attempting to change the structure, the mutable connective tissue. All right, so PAILs and rails. We're gonna do 2 for the hip, and we're gonna do 1 for the shoulder. So for the hip, we're gonna start in bear pose. Let me back up here. Personally, I find the best way to get into bear pose, or to find bear pose, is to get into a butterfly position. Don't crank it all the way and just get into, kind of a natural butterfly position. Leave your knees where they are, don't let them move. Open up the legs so that your shins are parallel. We want parallel shins, we want knees pulled back, we want to be splayed open here. That should create a little bit of maybe tightness or discomfort at the hips. You should also feel like you have to round, because there's tension in the hip that's rotating it, and you're gonna have to hold on to your ankles and pull yourself up to stay upright, or really use your back muscles. That's how we should feel. If you don't feel that way, if my legs are out here, I don't feel I don't feel like I need to round. So pull your knees back, and that'll put you in that position where you feel like you're leaning back and you're gonna have to fight to stay upright. That's what we want. If you're not a little bit uncomfortable, chances are you're not gonna be changing the structure of the hip the right way. So we pull those knees in. You can hold on to your ankles, or you can just let your hands hover. What we want is for our elbows to be about 1 inch away from the knees. You see how I can move about 1 inch? I'm gonna hold on. We pull the knees in, and we're going to isometrically push against our elbows. So I'm really driving with my knees. I'm getting that inward push. I'm going to push against my elbows, and we're gonna do it progressively. So we're gonna ramp up that effort. That's when we do PAILs, progressive angular. So then, when we do rails, I'm gonna say rails, boom. We're gonna pull those knees down as hard as we can, away from that center line. We were pushing inwards, now we're pulling outwards. I'm not using my elbows to push it open. I'm just, boom, using all of this lateral hip tissue to open up that hip trying to touch the floor, and I'm gonna use my strength as much as I can to splay those knees open. It helps if you make a fist. That'll help your neural drive to help pull those knees open. Chest is up tall, core is in tight, and we're gonna pull it open. So, get ready. Get into that bear pose. We're gonna do this 2 times through, holding on to the ankles if you need to. Chest is up tall. We're gonna push into those elbows at 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%. We want to be safe, but we want to ramp it up 80, 90, and hold it at 100%. We're here for 15 seconds. Push, push, push. Chest up, core tight. You might be shaking. Really, really push, push, push. Your inner thighs are burning. 5, 4, 3, 2, and rails. Pull it away. Pull it hard. Pull it hard. 15 seconds. Push, 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 push. Or pull. Open, open, open. Chest up tall. Core tight. Pull it apart. 5, 4, 3, 2. Relax. Don't move. You might feel like you have a little bit more range in the hip. That bear pose that we're in might feel a little bit less uncomfortable than it was before. If that's the case, you can jack them back a little bit to give you a little bit more tension. Now I'm in a deeper bear pose, but I feel like I did before I started. So I'm back to that, kind of back is a little bit rounded, and I'm gonna need to hold on to keep that position. All right, guys, we're gonna do this a second time, second and last time. After this, we'll do a couple lift-offs in this position. I'll show you guys that. Get ready. We want about an inch play between the knees and the elbows. Pull the knees into the elbows and brace. Chest up, and we're gonna push it 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%. Maybe you can go harder than you did last time. 80%, 90%, 100%. Push, 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 push. We're here for 15 seconds. Push, 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 push. Oh man, 7, 3, 2, boom. Pull them away. Squeeze your fists. Pull, 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 pull. Chest up tall, core tight. How close can you get those knees to the floor? Fight. Pull them apart, pull them apart, pull them apart. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Relax. All right, we're gonna go right into our liftoffs. We're gonna do 10 liftoffs in this position, very similar to your rails position. Hold on to your ankles, chest is up tall, core is tight. Your spinal erectors or your back might be on fire right now from keeping yourself upright. We're gonna bring those knees up to the elbows, but we're not gonna push very hard. And we're going to, boom, drive them down just with their own strength, just like the rails. You don't have to hold on. It floats down, it rails down, and then it floats back up to the elbows. And when we touch the elbows, we pull them down, float back up to the elbows. Pull them down, float back up to the elbows. So join me in 10 more of those. 10, float back up. 9, chest is up tall. 8, all the way up. 7, keep going. 6, you can have hands on or hands off. 5, 4, chest up tall. Ooh, my back's on fire. 3, 2, and 1. Relax. Whew. All right, you guys are done with your bear pose. Kind of sweaty. This is not easy work, guys. This, you should, feel like you're getting in a little bit of work here. You're getting a little sweaty. Coming up next, we're doing some 90-90, and this is really gonna work on that internal rotation. This is challenging, guys. So here we go. Let's get ready for our 90-90s. For the 90-90 position, what we want is 90 degrees in this front leg. From ankle to knee to hip, 90 degrees. And then we want 90 degrees in our back leg, from shin to femur, right? So 90 degrees here. Then we also want a nice straight line from the shin to the front foot. So shin to foot, nice and straight. We got a 90 degree here, we got a 90 degree here. We're working on our back leg. This is the leg that's internally rotated. It should feel a little uncomfortable. We're going to turn. Right now our chest is probably facing our front leg because that's the easiest and it's the least resistance. We're going to turn, oh man, and we're gonna face that back leg. You might feel like you need to prop yourself backwards. That's okay. So we prop ourselves backwards, we look at that back leg. We're now rotating and putting this hip into a pretty extreme internal rotation. We're gonna do some pails and rails on this as well. Your pails, your progressive, where we ramp it up, is going to be pushing into the floor from the ankle to the knee. The whole thing pushes into the floor. Imagine that there's a scale, like a weight scale on the floor. The ones that you'd stand on to see how much you weigh, and you're trying to make that scale go up in weight. So we're pressing on it on the floor and we're trying to make it say 40 pounds, 60 pounds, 80 pounds. We're trying to ramp up the weight on that. We're pressing into the floor. This is with our hands behind us, we're pushing into the floor. Then we move our hand in front. The back hand can pretty much stay where it is, but we take the hand that's by our front leg, we move it in front, so now you're leaning forwards, and we're going to try to lift this leg off the ground. It's not going to happen. If you can lift it off the ground, chances are you're leaning back and cheating, right? So we want to lean forward towards it and then try and lift it off. You'll feel all of this tissue work in that lateral hip. We want to lighten the load on the scale. I say lift the leg, it's not going to come off the ground. Maybe we could take it from 100 pounds of weight down to 30 pounds. That's the goal, is to take as much weight of that leg off the ground as possible. So just like if you had an issue with lifting the toes on our toe lifts, the impulse, the neural impulse to lift and to innervate that muscle is enough to make a change. It doesn't actually have to lift up off the ground. And let's make sure we're trying to lift that whole leg like this, as opposed to just lifting the knee or just lifting the ankle or the knee. We want to try and lift that whole thing off the ground. So I'm going to do this with you guys. Hands behind, turn, make sure you're turning and facing that back leg. Buckle up because this is a doozy. Here we go. Let's push down 20%. We're not going to take this one quite as high. We're going to go up to like 80%. 30%. 40%. This is kind of a vulnerable position for a lot of people. 50%. So we don't want to overdo the effort, the isometric effort. 60, 65, 70, 75, 80. You're pushing down hard enough that you feel like your front leg is maybe, your other leg is getting a little bit lighter. Push, 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 push. We're gonna hold that for 15 seconds. Maybe you're 80 or 90%. Push, 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 push. Your hands are in back. This is not the hard part, guys. You might feel this. The hard part will be trying to lighten the load on that front leg, or the back leg rather. Here we go. Hands in front. Let's try and lift this leg for 15 seconds. Let's go. Rails. Don't lean back. Lean forward, lean forward, lean forward. 7, 6. You might even feel some cramping. Pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. All right. Ooh. All right, let's go into it again. Leaning back, pushing down with the knee, or pushing down with the whole system. Here we go. Pushing 20%, 30%, 40. If you think you can go to 100 this time, because it's loosened up a little bit, mine feels much better, we're gonna go to 100. 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Here we go. If you can make it to 100, you're there. 15 seconds. Ten to go. And hands in front. Here we go. Lighten the load on that scale. Here we go. Whew. This should be a struggle. Lift it, lift it, lift it, lift it, lift it. Hands in front, leaning forward. 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. All right, before we leave this position, we have been turning to face our back leg. We're gonna turn and face our front leg, and we're gonna do some lift-offs. If you're pulling and nothing's moving, you can come down to your elbows to make it a little bit easier. But let's try with our hands up straight, face that front leg so your chest is in line with your femur up here. Don't dip forward to pick that front leg up. Rather, let's be nice and solid with our upper body and pull it. Here we go. We're gonna pull it up 10 times. 1, really squeeze as far as you can. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. So we're done on that left side. We're gonna do the same thing on the right side. And just because this video is getting kind of long and I really wanted it to be as succinct as possible while giving you guys the whole thing, let's skip the shoulder pails and rails after this. We'll just make that part of another series. So this will be our last one today. We're going to do our 90-90, so line it up. When you flex your front foot, the line of that foot should be even with this front leg. We should have 90 degrees at the knee here, 90 degrees at the knee there. Cool. We turn and we face that back leg. We're gonna push down with our knee and our ankle. We're gonna increase the weight on that scale, add some weight to that scale, add some weight, maybe 20, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 65, 70, 75, and let's hold it at 80% for 15 seconds. Make sure you're turning and looking at that leg. Really pushing down from the knee all the way to the ankle on that back leg. Push, 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 push. 5, 4, 3, 2, move that hand in front. Lean forward, lean towards this leg, and oh man, trying to lighten the load. This is not going anywhere. Ooh, go, 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 go. Oh, try and lift, lift, lift. Nothing is happening, but I'm working hard. I can feel it lighting up all over here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and relax. So this side looks like it's worse than the other side because I can't lift it off. In reality, my other hip has worse internal rotation, so I can't get this far forward, which makes it hard to lift the leg off. On that other leg, I'm all the way back here, which makes it possible for me to lift off. So sometimes being able to lift it off, that doesn't mean you're better at it. It probably means you don't have the range of motion in that hip capsule to get far enough forward. So don't always see as picking it up off the floor as success. That's not the goal. Here we go. Lean backwards. This will be our last one other than the lift-offs. We are going to turn, face, chest facing that rear femur. Here we go, and push down 20%. 30, let's go up to 100 this time. 35, 40, 45, 50%, 60%, 70%, pushing down from ankle to heel. Or I'm sorry, from knee to ankle. Keep going. We're at like 85, 90, 95, and 15 seconds. Here we go. We're at 100%. Push, 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 push. Make sure you're still turning and looking at that leg. We want that isometric load under this internal angle. Push, 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 push. 5, 4, 3, 2, hands in front. Here we go. We're going to rail it. 3, 2, 1, rails. Oh, go, 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 go. You can see my feet squirming. I'm trying to get this leg up off the ground. Chest up tall, fight for it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh man. All right, turn and face your front leg. Chest even with that front femur. We're gonna do 10 lift-offs. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. No rocking in the upper body. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, guys, let those hips kind of just fall open. You might feel like you just did a hip workout, you might have some soreness in these rotators out here, the lateral hip. Let me know what you guys think. We'll get into some shoulder stuff another time. I want to keep this video way under an hour if possible, just to make it possible to go through. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have more soon. Every Sunday for now, we're doing a live race along video where we take onboard footage and we race for about 40 minutes or so. It's an hour session. We race along live on the trainers, and you'll be able to do intervals and match it up with the efforts that you see on the screen. So tune in for that. I'll see you guys soon.